On the cold and dark evening of January 15th, 1980, the city of Albany, New York, was blanketed in a bitter winter chill. Along the dimly lit stretches of Oak Ridge Road, a two-lane road bordering the sprawling campus of Greenwood Community College, dense thickets of pine and cedar trees cast deep shadows over the embankment, separating the street from the campus parking lots. Around 7 p.m., the unthinkable happened. A young woman suddenly burst through the dark tree line, stumbling into the oncoming traffic. She ran frantically between moving cars, screaming at the top of her lungs for help and waving her arms in desperation. Blood covered her face, and her mud-stained clothes bore witness to a violent struggle that had taken place just moments before. Drivers swerved to avoid hitting her, slamming on their brakes, but not a single person stopped or rolled down a window to offer help. Caught off guard, people's minds searched for rational explanations. One passing driver assumed it was just a dark student prank. Another figured it was a heated argument between a couple, while others wrote it off as rowdy teenagers messing around near campus. Within seconds, as cars drove away toward the warmth of their homes, a figure emerged from the shadows of the woods. Moving with quick, ruthless determination, the man grabbed the young woman forcefully by the arm and dragged her back into the pitch-black darkness between the road and the parking lot. Those terrifying, fleeting moments were the last time Sari Taylor was ever seen alive. The following morning, on January 16th, 1980, students heading to early lectures were horrified to discover Sarah's body lying among the small bushes separating the road from the parking lot. She was just 19 years old. Her textbooks and handbag were scattered nearby at the crime scene. An autopsy later confirmed that Sarah was viciously assaulted and beaten to death with blunt force trauma to her head and face. The news sent shockwaves through the quiet community of Albany, shaking the entire region to its core. How could a bright, dedicated student be murdered on a college campus, a place that was supposed to be safe? A lingering, painful guilt tormented the drivers who had passed by that night. Could I have saved her life if I had just stopped to help? Born on February 25th, 1960, Sarah Taylor was the youngest and most cherished of 8 children in a hard-working family. Known affectionately as Sari to her loved ones, she possessed a vibrant, outspoken, and ambitious personality that was impossible to ignore. Standing at an impressive 5'11", she excelled as an exceptional basketball player at Princeton High School, competing at a national level. But her passions extended far beyond sports. She was an active member of the student business organization, dreaming of opening her own craft store. Sarah was a free spirit who sewed her own clothes, knitted wool, and wrote poetry in small notebooks. After graduating in 1978, she moved into the Sherwood Apartments near Greenwood College to study business administration, working a retail job to pay her own tuition. On the afternoon of her murder, she called her mother to say she was heading to an evening class and might stop for ice cream with a friend afterward. It was the last time her mother would ever hear her voice. Albany police launched an intensive investigation immediately. Detectives combed the woods, knocked on doors at nearby apartments, and questioned hundreds of students, faculty, and locals. They focused heavily on the drivers who had witnessed the girl on the road, but the descriptions were frustratingly vague and conflicting. Some recalled the attacker being as tall as Sarah or taller, while others gave inconsistent estimates due to the darkness, the speed of the event, and pure panic. In February 1980, police resorted to a controversial technique for the time: forensic hypnosis on key witnesses, hoping to unlock suppressed details like facial features or hair color. Yet despite every effort, no suspect was identified. The case hit a dead end. With no CCTV footage available and DNA profiling not yet invented in 1980, the case went cold, becoming the oldest and most haunting cold case in the area. Over the following decades, Sarah's mother, Helen, refused to let her daughter be forgotten. She kept a handwritten ledger, logging every call, tip, and update, contacting the police department weekly until every detective knew her voice by heart. But time took its toll. Sarah's father, Thomas, passed away in 1989 without ever knowing who took his youngest daughter's life. In 1995, her mother also passed away after 15 years of tireless pursuit. Her answers still unfound. The torch was passed to Sarah's sister, Mary Ann, who vowed never to give up fighting for justice, even as the case file sat on the desks of dozens of different investigators over the years. In 2015, Detective David Richards took over the case alongside Inspector Clara Vance, making a personal promise to Mary Ann that he would not rest until the murderer was brought to justice. The first major scientific breakthrough came in the year 2000, when the state crime lab successfully extracted a clean DNA profile of the killer from biological evidence preserved from Sarah's 1980 autopsy. The profile was uploaded to the national database, CODIS, but yielded no matches, meaning the killer had never been convicted of a crime requiring a DNA sample. The genetic profile remained stored in a lab freezer, waiting in silence for over 15 years. Then came 2018. Following the revolutionary rise of investigative genetic genealogy, which famously brought down the Golden State Killer, Mary Ann urged police to apply the same cutting-edge technology to her sister's case. Police partnered with the specialized firm Genomics Insights and renowned genetic genealogist Emily Harper. Using advanced DNA phenotyping, the team made a rare and powerful discovery. The killer's DNA carried an extremely strong genetic probability for red hair, one of the highest confidence markers the firm had ever processed. Emily Harper began building a massive family tree, linking distant genetic cousins who shared less than 1% of the killer's DNA. She cross-referenced immigration records, birth and death certificates, census data, and military draft cards from World War II that documented physical traits. By tracing the lineage of red-haired men down through the decades, the genetic trail in March 2021 narrowed down to a single suspect, Daniel Thomas Miller. Background checks revealed that Daniel Miller was just 16 years old at the time of the murder in January 1980. He was a student at nearby Hillcrest High School and lived just half a mile, a 10-minute walk, from Greenwood College and the crime scene. However, genetic genealogy alone cannot be used to make a formal arrest. Courts require a direct DNA match. Investigators placed the 58-year-old Miller under tight, covert surveillance. One day in 2021, while riding his bicycle through the neighboring town of Kingston, Miller spat a piece of chewing gum onto the sidewalk and kept riding. An undercover detective immediately recovered the gum and rushed it to the crime lab. The lab extracted saliva from the gum and ran the comparison. It was a 100% direct match to the killer's DNA recovered from Sarah's body 41 years earlier. On June 8, 2021, police moved in to arrest Daniel Miller. In a dramatic twist of fate, he was taken into custody directly in front of Greenwood Community College, just steps from the very spot where he had abducted Sarah decades prior. Records revealed that while he had lived an unassuming life as a husband and father, Miller possessed a dark, hidden criminal past, including a 1985 conviction for abducting a woman named Alicia Johnson, whom he tried to bind with duct tape in his truck before she managed to escape. In March 2024, Miller stood trial before Judge Margaret Stone, who dismissed the defense's arguments regarding height discrepancies and found him guilty of first-degree murder, stating the court had not a shadow of a doubt that Miller was the man who beat Sarah to death. On October 3, 2024, Judge Helen Cross handed down the final sentence. Life in prison with no possibility of parole for at least 40 years, double the minimum required by 1979 law at the time of the crime. At 61 years old, Miller was effectively sentenced to die behind bars. After 44 agonizing years, the case was finally closed. Investigators returned a small gold earring belonging to Sarah and kept in the evidence locker for over 4 decades, back to her sister Mary Ann. At long last, justice had caught up with the shadows, and Sarah's memory could finally rest in peace.